What's up, Internet? You're tuning in episode 86 of Nintendo Noise, Split Screen Games weekly Nintendo podcast. I'm your host, Pete and Bessie, joined today by my very good friends and co-hosts, Mr. Stephen Radford
Hello, hello.
and Miss Sierra Plus Ultra.
Ayo.
I was hoping one of you would do a Mario sound. I was hoping
Well,
somebody was going to hit
you
me
know,
with
It's
a Wahoo or
me.
something. No, nothing. Okay.
Wahoo.
I'll leave it to the expert, Chris Pratt, to do the wahoos and the Mamma Mias. You know, it's not my place.
I want to get a mod of replacing all Mario's lines with Sierra's delivery right there, just like Wahoo. Here we go. But of course, the time has come, dear listener. It is the day that we are here to review the Super Mario Brothers movie. Both Steve and I saw it earlier today. Sierra saw it just last night, so we have it all, I'd say, very fresh in our minds here. And I'm excited to talk to you guys about it. Since I got out, I was like, I want to talk to somebody about this thing. So I'm like, I'm ready to go here. For those of you who haven't seen the movie yet, here's how we're going to break it down. We're going to jump into spoiler-free impressions. We'll give our overall thoughts. We will, avoid getting into any like major plot spoilers or Easter eggs or anything like that. And then we can jump down into that stuff, after we get through the housekeeping and everything. So you'll have a very, very clear warning for when it's time for you to jump if you haven't seen the movie yet and you want to go in fresh. But let's just get onto it. Steve, why don't you start without getting into spoilers? What was your overall impressions of the movie?
I think I thought it was okay overall. Was where I think I've landed on it. I think probably for me, if I'm giving it a score, I think probably a 6 out of 10 is where I think I'm landing with it at the moment. I've seen it literally. I came out of the cinema like an hour ago. So it's very fresh in my mind. I think it relied a little bit too heavily on references and Easter eggs. I think for me, for it to kind of carry, the story was very loose. I wasn't really expecting much of a story, but I was expecting at least something that kind of came together. Um, didn't really come together in a way that I think paid off with a satisfying ending for me. But I thought it was a charming movie. I thought I would be bothered by the voice acting. I wasn't. I was able to kind of disassociate the fact that these are movie stars that are voicing beloved characters I've played for my entire life. I was fine with that. I was able to kind of accept it and kind of move on. Visually, I thought it was great. Looked like a good representation of the Mushroom Kingdom that we come to know and love. I thought Peach especially was really good. I liked her as a character as well. I liked that they kind of gave her a little bit of a different vibe. She's always been kind of this damsel in distress, and they've actually given her a little bit of a character this time and made him a bit more of a less of a cardboard cutout like she is in the games. Like she actually has a little bit of a backbone and a reason for existing in the movie, which I thought was good. But yeah, overall, I think for me, um, there's a lot of room for improvement. I'd like to see a sequel. I think we probably will get a sequel based on how well it's done. But it
You
relies
tell me
way
you
too
didn't stick
heavily.
around for the post-credit scene, Steve? We're getting a sequel.
I did. I did stick around for the post-credit scenes, but I just kind of feel like that it relied too much, like I said, on the references for me. That was really the thing that kept me there and kept me engaged, was I was looking for them. And you don't have to look hard. They're kind of dime a dozen. Every 2 seconds there's another Mario reference or another Nintendo reference.
How about you, Sierra?
My feelings are actually similar to Steve's. I'm glad that I'm not the only critical person here. I had a lot of fun. I like worth every penny. I loved watching it. Obviously like lost my beans at like all the deep cuts.
Of which there are very many. There
Very
are some
many.
deep, deep cuts.
Sequences were very satisfying, like the action. Um, I wish they didn't forego development and plot. I feel like there would have been a way to balance everything. Um, but it feels like the aim of the movie was to get you to subliminally consume Mario. I went home and they did the job. The first thing I said to Jeremy when I go home was like, I want to play Mario. I saw the Mario movie and I want to play. um so I think that's all it's really meant for, you know? Like, doesn't have to be Fantastic Mr. Fox. Some things were annoying to me, which I will divulge later. But
Yeah, we'll have plenty of time for that.
so fun. So go see it if you have $30 to burn and maybe $7 for a small soda and 20 for popcorn.
Yeah,
Um
I just took food and drink with me. I'm like, there's no way I'm
they
paying for
don't
cinema
there's no
prices.
way. I don't have a purse anymore. I have a fanny pack. So it's
You
harder.
got to take
Oh,
fanny pack size snacks.
yeah, exactly. Plus one on the visuals, by the way, like stunning, very stunning textures and like lighting and like
Doesn't that make
everything.
you want like a next gen Mario? Like I was like, oh, imagine
Yeah.
if like their faces could interact in this way and like the world could be this
Yeah.
rich
Mario
and
cinematic scenes.
beautiful. Yeah, like I really want that.
They talked a lot about how they invested a lot of money in improving the technology at Illumination for this, and I definitely feel like you saw that here. I think like
Mhm.
a lot of the lighting, especially, it was very very good. So yeah, I mean, I definitely think I am hotter on it than either of you, but I also think I went in fully expecting it to be exactly what it was. So I think that's kind of where I'm at for it. Like I I feel like I don't agree with Steve about the Easter egg bit because I think when it comes down to this movie, it was never going to be a movie that had a deeper level of emotional resonance because it's an Illumination movie. Like that's not the kind of movie that they make. And I think we can it's fair to lament that and ask for that, but that's not what we were going to get and that's never what we
No,
were going to get.
but like
Hey,
it's not it,
I let you talk. I let you talk.
but they like set a catalyst up and they don't explain it, right? And that's the
Steve,
thing, the bit
Steve,
I think
Steve,
that's the thing that annoys
Steve.
me the most.
Okay. That's nice. This is my part. So I think when you compare it to the other similar films like this, right? Which in my mind, the two most recent at bats are Detective Pikachu and the two Sonic the Hedgehog movies that we've gotten. I think if you liked those, you'll like this. It's a similar level of this is a child's movie. This is a kid's movie. It's not a Pixar movie. It's not a movie that's gonna have um oh, it's ostensibly for kids, but it's also something that's going to really strike a chord with adults. Like that's not what it is. It is very much a movie for children and for Mario fans. And I think if you aren't nostalgic for Mario, if you aren't someone who's going to pop for Easter eggs and that kind of thing, then like you are going to, I think, walk away with that attitude about it, you know, and I think that's reasonable, you know. I certainly don't decry anyone who feels that way, but I think for me, walking away from both Detective Pikachu and the Sonic films, I remember feeling like I wish that they were a little bit more for the fans, and it felt like it spent a lot of time um like Sonic is very much a but what if Sonic was in the real world, right? Rather than really being a Sonic the Hedgehog movie. And Detective Pikachu has a lot of focus on this big, like, let's try to establish emotional stakes and this father son story and everything. And I think that's the least interesting part of the movie, right? The most exciting part is the part where you're just getting to exist in the world of Pokemon and see it and, you know, get a taste for it. And I think that's the things that this movie does well, right? Um, it is the visuals, it is the like leveraging music cues, it is understanding like the visual language of Mario and nailing things like showing the different jumps from each game and some things like that where again like I think if you're not going to pop for that then you're just not and that is what it is, right? I think it definitely relies on you either being a child and not caring that the plot is paper thin and that it's a slapstick comedy, right? um or being somebody who cares enough about Mario to get excited about that kind of thing. So, you know, I think if you go in with that mindset of like this is kind of supposed to be a, you know, cute, fun, disposable, it's an hour and a half, it doesn't overstay its welcome, it's very brisk. And I think
Oh, no, I
that
don't agree with that. I felt like it was outstaying its welcome with me. It's an hour 44, not an hour and a half,
okay,
and
again,
I think it's 15 minutes too long.
buddy, you got to say your thing, right? This is just I'm just saying this is how I feel. I don't
Mhm.
think that. Also, I'm pretty sure it's an hour and 32 minutes. Am I wrong?
When I looked at the run time, it said hour 44, but that might be include the credits.
Hmm. Maybe so. Either way. No, it says an hour and 32 minutes right here. That's what I'm seeing. So that's probably including, you know, the trailers and all that whatnot up front.
Mhm.
Um, but yes, I think that's where I'm at with it. It's like I think if you have a child in your life that you want to go see this movie with, right? I think you can have a perfectly serviceable time. I think if you are somebody who is like a big diehard Mario fan and is going to notice that's the jump from Sunshine. Oh, this is the jump from Super Mario Brothers 2, right? Or like how this is like a one Easter egg I'll spoil is that there's a sequence in the beginning of the movie, right, where they're running through Brooklyn and all of the things, all the platforms and everything they go through recreates World 1-1, right? Like cute little things like that. Um, that's really where the care and attention I think goes into this movie. That's where the parts that are for adults come through is like if that's something that will resonate with you, right? And I think that's that's kind of what this is, and I don't think it for me it veers on the right side of that line in terms of like it doesn't feel like a Ready Player One thing for me where it's like remember this, remember that, remember this, remember the Iron Giant, here he is. That's cool. I think it does do that like in a lot of instances, but I feel like more often than not um it gives me some of the bits and moments that I feel like you want out of a what this movie was going to be rather than how I felt walking away from like again Sonic the Hedgehog where I'm like okay like this was a cute kids movie but how much of this actually felt like Sonic versus Sonic is running around in like woods that are just real life, right? Like that doesn't feel as magical to me. That doesn't feel as special as like what I think this and to a lesser extent Detective Pikachu were able to do just by creating a really beautiful environment to kind of realize these worlds, right? That we have seen before and have that nostalgia for. Um, I don't know, like in terms of like on a critical rating, like I think I'm trending like high in like a higher sevens, like where it's like I think if you go in with the right mindset, if you're looking for something that's digestible and fun, this is that. If you're looking for something that's really gonna hit that kind of quality of like a Pixar movie, of like a, even like a DreamWorks movie, I guess in some cases, right? They have, I think, movies that are on that upper echelon, right? I don't think this is quite there. And I think if you are somebody who has no relationship to Mario, if you're not a Nintendo person, then I would not go see it. Because
Mm.
I don't think you'll get anything out of it,
Yeah.
and that's that's the thing, right? Is like if that's what you're down for, then like Sierra said, I think go in and you'll have a fun time, you know? But if you are wanting it to, have like this super deep emotional narrative that's gonna get you into an introspective place, I think this is probably not the movie for you.
Yeah, I mean, I don't think I was expecting a big narrative, like I said. I think it was just I wanted them to pay off with what they set up in the beginning, and we'll talk about that in the spoiler section. But 100%, I went with my partner who's not a big Nintendo person, and they came away saying their response was, "I think I'd rather have just played Mario than coming to watch the movie, and I probably would have had a better time for an hour and a half, like
I think
playing
that's
Mario Odyssey."
yeah, I think that's true,
That is so funny. They didn't enjoy the movie, but they still wanted to consume
Yeah,
Mario.
yeah,
It's because the vibe is good, right? Like it gets the art and the music, and like those are the good things, right? Those are the things that I think are universally enjoyable.
yeah.
Um,
You mentioned the music. I actually was really disappointed with some of the music picks. Like, I wish they'd have used more of the game music in places. Like, we had Aha's Take on Me rather than something from Donkey
oh
Kong
yeah, yeah.
Country. It's like
I
there's
only
some
liked
strange choices there.
that's the Illumination side of it, right? Which is
Yeah.
Yeah.
a bummer, right? I would have liked another studio to do it, but this is who we got. And but I will say there is the one licensed track usage that I actually liked, which was the Beastie Boys rip. I thought that worked well enough.
Mm.
Perfect.
Like they're
That was the
in
one perfect one.
Yeah, and it's like, other
Yeah.
than that, yeah, I coulda done without Take on Me, but I don't know, like, I think, like, the music cue of, like, the first time you see the castle, things like that, like, there's a lot of really good,
Yeah, there are, yeah, and like the underground theme and things like that that you get from some of the older games is really cool
and the
as
way that they
well.
just
Like,
kind of naturally get woven into, like, a moment, right? It's like, oh, all of a sudden we're in this, like, it looks like a 2D platforming section and a piece of music that you recognize starts playing, and you're like,
mhm,
"Okay," like, it has those moments where it does capture, like, the feeling of the game in a way that I don't think a lot of other video game movies do a great job of. Like, again, Sonic, cute. I don't feel like the moments where you see Sonic running around don't really feel reminiscent of what it feels like to play a Sonic game, right? And in Detective Pikachu, we don't get any, like, big Pokemon battles. We don't get any of those big moments that are like, "This is what I think of when I think of Pokemon." It's more just like, oh, it's cool that there's a city and there's like a Squirtle in it, right? That's a cool thing. But I
What if New
think
York
this,
but Pokemon?
yes, right, exactly. And I think this gets it more, right? Like it does tap into the vibe and the feel of the games, I think, in a way that is like not easy to do. And I definitely understand feeling like it's not enough to carry the entire weight of a 90-minute movie. But it's one of those things where, like, I think that aspect of it deserves its flowers, even though it's got
it was great.
razor thin plot, right? But, like,
Yeah.
what Mario game doesn't have a razor thin
No,
plot?
yeah, 100%. I do wonder where they've got to go in, like, a sequel, though, because I feel like they used so many references up that how do you kind of progress from that without maybe that's the time they take, that we've set the world up. We know that you know that we get Mario, and this is the world that we've built on the movie screen, and maybe that's when they kind of progress the plot a little bit more and are able to explore different stories.
I think that's probably a reasonable prediction, right? Because, like, they did lay threads, like, about, like, oh, like, Peach has a backstory and she came from this other place, like, we're teasing that, right? Is that a thing we're gonna come back to at some point? Um Yeah, I think this is very much an origin story. Like, it is very much like, here's how Mario came to the world, and this is like the next movie is going to start from a place of they're already here. They're not fish out of water anymore, right? They already have a house in the Mushroom Kingdom and everything. I think those are all things that, like, I could see that being a focus moving forward, is like, let's get more into character and stuff like that. But it's Illumination, so it's like, is that a thing they're going to do? I don't really know, you know? I feel like more of their emotional beats are, like, telling you than really than earning the moment. Um, but I don't know. There's bits of that we'll talk about in the full spoiler section, because I do have some thoughts about some of that stuff that I thought worked okay. Um, the one other thing I did wanna touch on in the spoiler-free section, just, like, while we were talking about the music, is I was definitely bummed in the credits to see that they only credited Koji Kondo. He's
Yeah,
the only
bizarre,
video game
bizarre choice.
composer who they gave credit. Like, the DK rap shows up in the Smash section, right? And it's like Grant Kirkhope, who's the composer of that, and
He
DK64.
specifically called them out on Twitter about it as well. He was saying he thought
So
he was gonna get
lazy.
a movie credit, but didn't get one. I don't know why. It's really strange.
I mean, it's annoying because, like, they do this all the time. Like, they did this with the Metroid Prime remaster, right? Where they were just like, oh, it's based on the work of the original team. It's like, how hard is it
Who
to
are
put a
they?
This is
person's
kinda
name?
different though, like, doesn't Grant actually own some of the copyright for that? Like, as a
No,
music
because
writer, like, how does that work?
it's for hire work. So,
Hmm,
like, Nintendo owns the piece. They don't legally
they
have to
don't
give
have to
him
credit him then, yeah.
credit, I guess. A lot of
Ghouls.
people have been like, oh, maybe they'll change it, like, when it comes to the final release,
Yeah,
and they'll add it
fucking
or
right.
whatever.
They had years.
But even that, right? It's like, it wouldn't be the same anyway. Even if they do add it retroactively, it's like Koji Kondo didn't get to have that moment in a theater. Not Koji Kondo. Grant Kirkhope didn't get to have that moment of being in the theater, surrounded by fans and seeing his name on the big screen. Like, it's just I don't know. It's so easy to give people credit. I don't understand why you can't add 10 more seconds to the shit. In that case, it wouldn't even take more time. It's already there. It's blocked out. Like just add his name.
Yeah, rather than from the game, it was like all of the tracks were just like DK rap from the game X or from the game
Yeah,
Y.
yeah, right. From Donkey Kong 64. It's like, okay, come on. So I definitely didn't love that. But yeah, so any other thoughts on the spoiler free side of things before we get into more of the nitty gritty?
Can't.
Okay.
I
What about
can't.
you, Steve?
No, yeah, pretty much everything else would really kind of be a spoiler.
Okay, cool.
I think though, I think it's worth touching on the fact that all of our criticism clearly has not had an effect on the movie though.
Sure.
Even though it's got a
Oh, yeah.
57% rating on Rotten Tomatoes, which is technically rotten, it's become the best opening for any animated movie of all time, surpassed Frozen 2 and 377 million in a weekend. So I don't think they've got any concerns whatsoever
I think
Frozen
it's
with
haters rejoice.
yeah, exactly.
I think it's also worth calling out that while the movie does have a 57% on Rotten Tomatoes from critics, it has a 96% from fans. So take that for
Mhm.
what you will. I think not to say that like matters, right? Because I would say generally speaking, if critics are really low on something and audiences are really high on something, it's probably because it's not that great. And I think in this scenario, that might be a fair criticism to levy at it. But I also think that for me, if I couldn't see a film critic liking this movie, right? Um, I don't think that's who it's for, though. Again, like I think this is a movie made for little kids who will be wowed by the sense of, oh my God, it's Mario on the big screen. And for 30-year-olds like me who will be like, wow, oh my God, Mario's on the big screen. So if
Yeah,
you,
I get yeah, I know that's what they've made, but I feel like they could have made something else. And I think that's one of the things that upsets me the most about it is because there's so much there already. The basis, the structure, the setting, as we've all said, it looks amazing. They've managed to get all the references in there. They just needed to go a little bit further, and I think they probably would have had something that most people would have agreed was a really great film. Because I think most people agreed that Detective Pikachu was a pretty good film and it was a pretty good
you willing to bet
adaptation.
on that? You willing to bet on
I
that?
think it probably got higher rating than this, would be my guess.
Okay. Here, let's real quick. Let's play this game before we move into spoiler full. I'm gonna get the Rotten Tomato scores for both this and Sonic the Hedgehog, and you guess which ones
I think
are
Sonic's
higher.
probably worse, but I think Detective Pikachu is probably higher.
What do you think, Sierra?
Same.
Okay. So let's see. We've got okay. So Detective Pikachu, 68% fresh enough.
Mhm.
Sonic the Hedgehog, 64, still fresh,
So
not so great though.
both rated higher than Mario.
This one, not surprising to me actually though. Sonic the Hedgehog 2, 69, trending
Nice.
upwards.
I never saw the sequel. Is it worth a watch?
I haven't seen it either. I've heard it's really good though.
I haven't seen it either. I've been meaning to.
And to me, I feel like that one has the likelihood to have more of the vibe that I wanted
That's
from the
the
first one
yeah.
because we got Tails, we got Knuckles, Jim Carrey's in full Eggman, he's bald and everything already. We're good to
That's the
go,
one with
right?
Idris Elba as playing Shadow, right?
Not Shadow, Knuckles.
Knuckles.
Knuckles, yeah.
But I think maybe worth pointing out here, right, is maybe that trend does work in the way that for the same way for Mario that you pointed out, Steve, where like the first one is the one where it's like we have to explain how everything works and set it up, and then it's like the second one is more like okay, so what
You get it
now
now.
what's
Yeah.
there's a story here now, right? Like, but I don't know, we'll see if it follows the same trajectory as like a standard like superhero movie or any like another like origin type thing, right? Like that's usually the thing, right? The first one's where we explain the rules, the second one's where it's like, okay, we're off to the races. We're starting from a position of you're already in with us, right? So we'll see. All right, so I am going to tell you now we're about to get into plugs, and after that, it's full spoilers. So if you haven't seen the movie, you want your out, here's your out, okay? You've been warned. I'll tell you what, plot, razor thin. You're not getting that much spoiled for you anyway, so stick around and hang out. Before we get into that, though, let me remind you that this episode of Nintendo Noise is brought to you by our Patreon producers for the month of April. They are, of course, Arnold J. Rimmer, Christopher Valenz, Earth Visitor, Gabriel Hasselmeyer, a.k.a. Asobi, Snackago, Ty the Dude, and Wakahula. Thank you all so much for your support over on patreon.com/flipscreengames. You're all the realest of the real, and we greatly appreciate your support of this and all of our sister shows. If you want to write in and let us know your thoughts about the Super Mario Brothers movie, or any of the other stuff that we talk about here on Nintendo Noise, or any of our sister shows, guess what? There's a bunch of ways you can get in touch. Head over to flipscreen.games. That's our website where you will find links to our email address. You can come join the Discord where the conversation keeps rolling between episodes. You can go become a Patreon supporter, get the show early. However you choose to get involved, we thank you for tuning into this week's episode of Nintendo Noise. So, Sierra, you couldn't even give me another thought on the movie because you wanted to spoil it. Jump in. Where do you want to start us off? Where do you want to take it?
I feel like we should go in chronological order. No? Like, try to
Sure.
recount as much as we can chronologically.
Yeah.
Well, I guess the penguins isn't, like, a spoiler. So what I will say is, like, the fact that, like, we get the Mario family reveal was insane. I was not
I
expecting
I
that.
loved that. I gotta say, the entire opening part of the movie where they were in Brooklyn,
Yeah.
I loved. And I loved all of they're just the extremely stereotypical Italian-American Mario Brothers family.
Yeah.
Incredible.
Also, like, the Jumpman, cabinet in the pizzeria
Yeah, and
was
I don't
Yeah,
know,
and the name of the pizzeria, Punch Out, was really
the
cool
Punch
as
Out
Yeah.
well.
Pizzeria. Yeah, and there was like Glass Joe was up on the wall, and there was like a duck hunt, like a duck thing flying away, like as a print on the wall and stuff like that. Lots of cute little things. Spike, the guy who like they had the conflict with, is from the Wrecking Crew, which is like an
Yeah.
old NES game, one of Mario's early
Oh.
appearances.
I
And the
love
Jumpman
Luigi's ringtone as well. Like
was the
I almost messed
GameCube.
it
Yes,
when it was the
that
Start
I
of
lost
GameCube.
my beats. That was
Yo,
I was like,
literally,
"Ah!"
as soon as I heard that, I was like, I'm gonna make that my ringtone when I get home.
Yeah.
That's too good. That's a great idea. Um, and yeah, the Jumpman, the guy who told them that the accent was great and he was the one playing the cabinet, that was Charles Martinet, and that was like the original Mario
Shit.
outfit,
It was,
the old
yeah.
school Jumpman outfit, and like, so I think those things I think are fun because I think that's like the right way to do Easter eggs. I always prefer stuff like that than like I think of one of the examples that like really doesn't work for me is like in Rogue One, where they have the like moment where it's like, oh, here's the Princess Leia like giving the message moment, and it's like supposed to be this big like, oh, look how cool this is, and it ties everything together, and I'm like, I hate this. Like, this feels like it cheapens something that felt special. Whereas to me, I love shit like this where it's like, if you don't know Punch Out, if you're not a retro video game, it's like, okay, cool. Like that, it doesn't get in the way of the story or the motion of the movie. It doesn't like stop to be like, look at this Easter egg. How cool
Yeah.
is this? It's more just like, and again, that's like the Ready Player One thing where I feel like it's constantly just like, look at this character we got the rights for. Look at this character we got the rights for. It's like, okay, I fucking get it. I appreciated their kind of weaving that stuff just through every scene. Every scene has dozens of little things in the background. And like, if you, in the beginning, right, I was like trying to remember things to be like, oh, I want to
You can.
call out this. And but yeah, as soon as you get that's like, all right, forget it. Like, I'm going to have to watch this thing like 10 times to catch all of the references that are
There's
just
some,
woven in the
like,
background.
there's some really deep ones though. Like there's a scene towards the end, right? And it kind of zooms out and you see the upper sections of the buildings, and like the playing card on the side of the building is like an old Nintendo playing card that they're like advertising on the side of the building. And
I
stuff
didn't
like
catch that.
Wow.
That's cool.
Stuff like that people would not even clock unless you are like a big Nintendo nerd and you know that they started out making playing cards.
And there's stuff that like there was like the Mario Brothers rap, which obviously we saw prior to the film, so that was kind of spoiled. But like that's from the Super Mario Brothers Super Show from the 90s, right? Like that's a thing for the parents in the audience. I heard them laugh at that, right? Like at my showing, I was the only adult there by myself, and everybody else was, one or two parents with kids or whatever. And that was one of the jokes that all the adults laughed at and none of the kids laughed at, and it's cute to have those moments for sure. They had Pauline as like the mayor
I
of
love
Yeah.
that,
NYC during the
yeah.
flood,
Wild.
like lots of good deep cuts like that, if you're an eagle-eyed viewer for some of them, right? Some of them are
Yeah.
a little more obvious than others, but like that card thing, I must have been looking somewhere else at some other Easter egg, right? And it's quick
Yeah.
enough that it flies right by you.
When,
And like
Mario goes to his room angry and he's playing Kid Icarus.
yeah, he's playing Kid
Oh
Icarus, yeah.
my
And
god.
there's like all these old NES game posters in the background and stuff.
I was
And
trying to see all of them, but you can't. There's just so much there. Like you would have to like
Yeah.
freeze frame it and just like like go, oh, what's that? What's that? What's that?
yeah. And like those things are cool, like again, like I know that they're surface level, right? Like they don't amount to a good plot or anything like that, but I think it shows an attention to detail and like a care for the franchise that I think is fun. Like this movie is unapologetically like this is a Mario movie for Mario fans, and like if that's what you wanted, you're gonna get your fucking mileage out of it. Like we're going all in on it. And I think probably to the point of being safe in other ways, right? Like to the detriment of the film overall, but I think that is really where you see a lot of the fun that they were having, like with the animation team and like sneaking stuff in the background that
Mhm.
most people won't even see, you know? That is cool. And I mentioned this earlier that them nailing the visual language of Mario is something I also really appreciated.
Mhm.
That's a thing I always pop for when it's done well with in the one that comes to mind for me is Spider-Man, right? As somebody who's like been a Spider-Man fan my whole life, um there's like certain poses and ways that he's drawn when he's moving, right? In a comic that like when you get it on the big screen or when you see it in a video game or whatever, right? That adaptation, it's like, oh, that's one of the little things you got right, right? Like it's like he looks a certain way when he jumps straight up, right? Or he looks a certain way when he comes in for a swing kick. And like they got that with Mario here a lot. Like I called out there's multiple times where you can see like, oh, like this is the jump from Mario 64 and then he does the ground pound, or like this is how he moves in Super Mario Sunshine, or like this is clearly a callback to, Super Mario Brothers 3 or Super Mario World or whatever. And those are neat things. Again, I think it shows that like that attention to the minor details, which are fun. I think it's fun to like comb through it and find those little nods where you can.
Yeah, it was interesting how they kind of switched up the plot a little bit of Mario Odyssey, right? Because in that game, he's trying to marry Princess Peach. In this movie, Bowser's trying to marry Princess Peach.
He had like the outfit and like the
Had the
cape
same
felt
Yeah.
very
outfit, yep.
reminiscent of
Yeah.
Odyssey. Yeah.
But she goes with him willingly to try and save her people in this instance, which I thought was nice. I really liked Peach as a character. I think they did a good job with her. I
Me
think she
too.
was she was probably the character who differed most from her video game counterpart, and I quite liked that because she's always been kind of that damsel in distress, as I said at the top.
Except for Super Mario Brothers 2, which is the only time where she's
Yeah.
a regular playable character. And it's like, what's up? Well, I mean, obviously in more modern ones we've gotten that again, but for a long time that was the only one.
Yeah. I was kinda glad, like, her play was, like, normal. Like, if the way she's voice acted, which is appropriate and, like, correct, but, like, it's a nice change up from, "Oh, Mario!" and, like, that
Yeah.
high-pitched,
Yeah.
airy, heady, like, voice. Like, it was nice that she, like, I don't know, like, badass. I don't know how to describe this, but what comes to mind is badass girl next door, which is, like, weird to
No,
say,
I,
but,
I
like,
get that though.
I
No,
think
I
that's what they
totally
were
get that.
going for, and they succeeded.
Yeah, that makes a lot of sense to me when you put it that way though, because like I feel like it is that kind of like she's really tough and she's really strong, but there is like a vulnerability to it as well because of like the whole like she doesn't know her past and the Toads are like her found family and like they're in jeopardy and like there are real emotional stakes for her that make her feel I think more human than most of the other characters, you know, because like I mean, like obviously Mario wants to save his brother, right? So like there's
Yeah.
that. But I think,
He seems
you
to
know,
forget about that, like, somewhat throughout the film, though,
no,
like
he mentioned he's like every time that they're like, "What's going on?" He's like, "I gotta save my brother."
I gotta save him. My okay, on the topic of like interpersonal relationships between the characters, though, my first big gripe was that like Mario's relationships with Toad and Peach are just not earned. He shows up and he's like, "Yeah, I'm here to save my brother," and Toad is like, "Okay, well, we're going on an adventure," and then they just go. I'm like, you're not gonna second guess why this dude just landed in your hometown in your
T-
digs? And you're just
Toad,
gonna
I think,
follow
is
him?
is pretty underdeveloped in that overall. You know, like I
Yeah.
think Toad feels kind of like
Toad's like that
he feel
sidekick character that's just willing to go along with anything, though, and
yeah,
I
yeah,
liked
but
him.
like
I liked the way he was voiced, his like attitude. I quite liked him
yeah,
as
I
his
like Keegan
Yes,
Michael
mentality
Key's
thing.
yes.
performance for sure.
And I actually think it makes sense when you see the backstory of Peach coming through that same pipe, right? And them finding her, and like maybe they've got that understanding of, oh, people come through this pipe, and this is just what happens. Maybe someone's come again, and like we take these people in and we kind of help them.
I think I'd be more down for that interpretation if all the other Toads weren't like, what the fuck,
Yeah,
what's up with this? You know, like because I hear what Sierra's saying, where it's like he kind of just like he's very like the Deus Ex Machina character. Like his usage is very much to be like sometimes I'm like the zany comic relief character, and then other times I exist to move the plot forward, right? Where it's like,
Yeah,
oh
yeah.
well, Mario needs to meet Peach to get help saving Luigi. Okay, I'll take you. Cool. You know, and
See,
it's
with
like
Peach, like, she just looks at him and she's like, Who are you?" And he's like, "Here to save my brother," and she's like, alright, well, let's go." And I was just like
yeah.
she does put him to that physical
for a
test, but,
moment it
like
looked like she was like falling for him, and they were gonna do like some kind of thing there, but then it was just,
they
oh, you're
did drop
human.
that!
Yeah, it was
I thought
really
that
weird,
was
and then it got
Oh, I thought
abandoned.
that was a joke, I thought. Like, that was supposed like,
Oh,
you
'cause, like,
that's
oh my
your
god, he's a
expectation.
human.
Yeah, well, and I'm thinking, like, in every movie you see, right, like, it's like, oh, Mario and Peach have, like, a will they, won't they thing, so, like, they're meeting for the first time, it's love at first si no, actually, it's just she's gonna flip him on his ass, and, like, I felt like that was just supposed to be kind of like a bait and switch, like, movie
Yeah.
Oh,
gag, less than, like, saying anything
okay.
about how the characters felt about each other.
It's just that, like,
Um,
they were giving the POV of her looking at him in a flowery way. I also
yeah.
thought that, like, it was supposed to be, like, fawning.
I definitely get that. Yeah, I thought it
Yeah.
was supposed to just be like oh, like this is what you think's happening, and then the comedy of it is like, ah, ha, ha, like we've subverted your expectation.
Yeah.
That was how I read it anyway.
Yeah.
Um, I I don't know. I definitely agree with you about the Mario Toad dynamic. I kind of feel like the Mario Peach one is better, and like not as deep as it could be, not as deep maybe as it should be. But I did think like the whole like okay, she turns him down. And it's like, you can't help me. This is really dangerous. You're this little short guy. You're not going to do anything. And it's like his determination of like, no, like I need to save my brother, where she's like, all right, fine. Like, let's see what you're made of. And then through the training montage, it's like, okay, like you got heart, kid. Like, let's see if you die when you come with me or whatever. Right. And it's like
Yeah.
on the journey that they become friends. But like a big part of that journey is a montage where there's no dialogue. So like
Right,
there
right.
isn't you don't see the relationship grow. They tell you that oh, they've been traveling for a while, they've been through some shit, like whatever. Like,
Yeah.
it just kind of happens. And
Speaking of the traveling montage, when I saw the running Yoshi, I fucking screamed. I was like, "Yes, thank God we got a Yoshi. Like, we got a nod to Yoshi. We got to see
we
them
got to see
in
the
their."
stampede run by.
Yes, but the one and this is how I knew, um, the one stops and looks, and I was like, "I'm staying for this
Isn't it?
post-credits scene."
Yeah, the one that stops is pink, I think.
It is
And I was
pink,
like,
though.
okay, all right.
It is
So it's like,
pink.
is this, what's going on? And then it's like, of course, we see the egg. that's at the I was wondering if it's the same egg. There's the egg at the wedding on the
Mhm.
gift table, and then of course in the post credit scene we get the Yoshi egg as well, and it's like, oh okay, like
I saw on
Oh
Twitter
yeah,
that, like, they also
yeah,
noticed
that's
that
cool.
thread, that, like, it was the egg that was on the table.
yeah. Which is yeah, it's that was like a cool way to like lay that thread in there and be like, oh okay, like this is where we're going, like
Yeah.
which obviously it seems like yes. Which I'm excited. We'll talk about that later. We'll talk about the future and everything a little bit later. But yeah, I think broadly, I was pretty happy with the characters' portrayals. Steve, you said this
Yes.
earlier about like the voice acting and like being worried about the celebrities and everything. I would say like largely that worked for me. I thought the
Mhm.
characters felt true enough to who I expect them to be. Um, Except, Mario is I think of Mario as being confident and not bumbly, but
Mhm.
this is his origin story, right? So it's like, okay, like that's he's growing into that character, and at the
Well,
end,
like they've just
he
started a
is that guy.
business and stuff, and like he's
Yeah.
still not quite got it, but he's still got more confidence than Luigi though. He's always the one like bringing his brother along for the ride, so he does kind of have
So,
some of those traits.
and I will say that was the relationship I thought worked the best.
Yes.
Despite the fact that they spend the whole movie broken up, I really liked that they made the emotional core of the movie about their relationship as brothers and the whole like, when we're together we can do anything and that kind of thing. Like I thought that rang true. And I liked the way that they kind of couched that in the family dynamic,
Mhm.
right? Like we meet the Mario family and everything, and like I think largely they're kind of played for laughs, but that actually I thought that lent it lent some real credence to the emotional core of like their relationship, where like they have this sense of, you know, dad thinks Mario's a failure, right? And he feels small and he feels like he doesn't know his place in the world. And but in Luigi's eyes, right, like he is his hero and he's always been there for him and he's been the one to pick him up and dust him off and back him up. And like it's through that relationship, right? And like Mario sticking up for Luigi and Luigi believing in Mario that they're able to overcome their individual shortcomings and, as a team, do what they got to do. And I thought that was really good. Like they tease at the romance with Peach and like it's hinted at again later on and that kind of stuff. Um, but like I dig that the core of it is the Mario brothers, and that
Mhm.
that I thought that bit of it rung true. I thought that was the most earned moment for sure.
Oh, yeah. I was very happy with everyone's portrayals. I I mean, this is just my personal interpretation or my personal preference. I wish Bowser was a little less goofy, but I did think that Bowser was funny. I thought that like when
Yeah.
he says, "And then we'll have a fairy tale wedding," and then like the whole crowd goes
And they're
dead.
just like, what?
Like what?
Yeah,
Be serious.
that was a weird one for me because I remember in the like earlier part of the movie feeling like, oh, he feels a little too silly, because like it's not like Bowser's not silly, right? Like in Odyssey, he is kind of silly. Like the whole
Right.
he comes in the tuxedo and he's got the top hat and like but then it was like in the fight later on, I thought he did feel intimidating and like they had gotten the scarier bit where he's, oh, now you're gonna pay, and he beats the crap out of him, and then he's like gonna burn down the pizzeria while he's hiding and all that stuff. Like it's like I thought they balanced both of the tones, but so
Mhm.
much of the movie is him being silly and kind of like cute and funny, and then it's like, oh, he gets like really scary all of a sudden. I feel like it could have been probably a little bit more in either direction, and it would have felt more consistent.
Right.
I wonder if part of that is because you don't really have the comedic half of Bowser, which I always think is Bowser Jr. And he's the one that's always there that his dad can poke fun at, and he's the one that's always talking about how they're going to do all these like evil plans that turn out to be nothing.
I mean,
It,
they're gonna get introduced in the next one, right? Like, I
yeah,
mean,
of
I was
course
gonna
they
say
we
because
are.
they
are,
had the Koopalings, like, little vehicle doohickeys, but the Koopas were the ones driving them in combat and not the Koopa kids.
yeah.
So
I was kind of when there was the scene at the party, right? The one you were just talking about where he like says the romantic wedding line. there's like a metal band playing, and I was kind of wondering if Lemmy was going to be there because like that's usually
Ah,
his gimmick, and I was like, okay, so they're not. I don't. I'm getting the impression they're not in the picture yet, right?
yeah, I guess there
I
are,
Mhm.
don't know
like,
how you
too much
introduce
to
Bowser
do.
Jr. because Bowser
What?
Jr. I think is supposed to be his kid. I don't know
Yeah.
what but the Koopalings are adopted. They are not related to him by blood. So
Uh,
like him adopting them in the next movie and being like, oh, I wanted a family, whatever, like and I
You
don't
could
have
do that,
Peach.
yeah, like, I was gonna do a family with Peach, yeah, but now I can't. But where I don't think we've ever known where Bowser Jr. came from canonically, like,
No, I don't think so. But
where's
it's
the mom?
often part of the narrative is him being like, "Oh, I have children and I want them to have a mother," and like that's like that's
Yeah.
one of the other motivations for him to go after Peach. So it's like I think given the fact that it seems like the next Mario movie is going to be influenced by Super Mario World with the Yoshi stuff, that's where the Koopa kids were first introduced. So
yeah, you know what? That makes sense.
I wouldn't be surprised if they're on the docket for the next one. But
Oh, yeah.
we'll talk more about that in a minute. Um,
Um,
I do have one hot take about the voice cast. My hottest take is that, like, as much flack as we were like giving Chris Pratt, I don't think he's the worst voice in this by a lot. Fred
Nope.
Armisen does the voice for Cranky Kong, and it's inexplicable. It's an inexplicable choice. And like, I have nothing against Fred Armisen, right? Like, I've seen him in plenty of things where I think he's funny or whatever. Um, but he didn't sound like an old person. And it wasn't Fred Armisen's voice. Like he's doing a voice. So it doesn't even have the like Seth Rogen thing where it's like he's not doing a voice because he doesn't do voices. So it sounds like Seth Rogen and that's recognizable, right? It was like, I was like, who is this voice? Like, why is this Cranky Kong's voice? And then in the credits, it was like Fred Armisen. I was like, what the fuck? Like, why? It's like,
I
it
kinda get
satisfies
that.
neither thing, right? Where it's like Toad, Keegan Michael Key, doesn't really sound like Keegan Michael Key, but he sounds like Toad. So you're like,
Right.
okay,
Yeah.
this works for me. For this,
Yeah.
we get neither. And why didn't you just get an old person? Because he's like the oldest man looking character. And then he just has this like young person's voice. It's so strange.
Yeah, I thought that was okay. I thought like, I also didn't realize it was Fred Armisen, and I was like, "This is not what I would have pictured," but I guess whatever, like, my, uh my nitpick is I'm so sick of people casting Seth Rogen and being like, "You can just do Seth Rogen." Like, it is
Uh,
so, like, disorienting to hear, like, Donkey Kong do the Seth Rogen, like, it should not be, it should not be.
It's so funny because I have you are definitely not the only person I've heard throw that out. Uh but
Okay.
I think I don't it doesn't feel that weird to me because the only voice I've ever heard for Donkey Kong where it was like spoken lines and not just him being like is like we're doing a Tim Allen bark is in this cartoon called Donkey Kong Country: The Legend of the Crystal Coconut is the name of the
Oh, that old ass cartoon.
yes. And in that, he is very much a similar, like, he's this, like, goofy himbo bro character. And I'm
Yes.
like, I can kind of see Seth Rogen's voice for that. So it's like, I totally hear what you're saying, but I was also kind of like, I guess that's kind of how I picture Donkey Kong anyway, as this kind of like broy, like stoner, like macho kind of guy. And I'm like,
Fair.
it's
Just don't do the Seth Rogen laugh. That just takes, like, me right out of the universe.
the, the
Out of
thing the
body
thing that
experience.
the thing that killed me with him was I think it was like the cringiest line in the whole movie was the it's on like Donkey Kong thing. I was like, please no, come on.
yeah.
That's yeah.
That was a bridge too far for
That's
me.
like in Fast and Furious if Vin Diesel was like, it's me,
This
Vin
sure is
Diesel.
fast
Sure,
and
Fast and Furious,
furious.
like, yeah, exactly. Yeah, like that.
All right, listen, we're gonna set a Patreon goal where I want to just get like cuts of movies and I give Sierra the actual script in front of her and then she just like like just kind of summarizes it as she's going, you know, and just like ad libs, which is like, yeah, it's real fast and furious out here. Let's get in our cars and go. Like,
Yeah, I would love to. That sounds like so much fun.
we got to get that one on the board. But I think one thing that I was surprised by was a lot of the humor did end up landing for me because so much of it was just slapstick comedy, which I think is funny, and especially in animation, it just works. It's like there's a lot of like Looney Tune shit where it's just like the bit here is that somebody got hit or that somebody fell down or that whatever, right? It's just like when it works, you know?
Yeah, I mean, there's a
Yeah.
specific scene where she talks about when he gets hit, he loses his power up, and then we see him get hit about 20 times over, so they can do that slapstick routine.
Yeah.
I think the biggest issue for me with the movie was the plot, and we've spoken about that. But specifically, I hated the fact that they go in this section and they like get transported to the Mushroom Kingdom, and that is never explained. Like literally, Mario says, "What is this place?" and they never ever explain what that place is.
Oh
That
my
is
god,
fair. Because I didn't
see,
realize that either.
that's so funny to me. I completely disagree with that as a criticism. I think if they had explained that, that would have actively made the movie worse. That to me is like a cardinal sin in almost any kind of genre film, is to explain how things work. It's not interesting. I
But
don't
I
want to
want to know.
know.
I want to know like how it got there, why it's there, why it's like in the sewer. Like I don't.
How do you imagine Steve, be real. In this
I
movie
don't
that is
know.
an out. Well, listen to me though. Think about this. This movie's 90 minutes. So you're telling me in a movie that we're complaining that there's not enough plot or character development, we're going to either cut out some of the existing plot or character development to explain a boring lore thing that would still not make sense if they explained it. We would just have an explanation that would be dumb, or we add time onto this movie to explain something boring and dumb that they still, you know, it's like, I don't need to know why the bricks float in the air. That's not interesting, right? Like, it's like, I feel
People
like
do
that
want to
is,
know that though. Like they've asked, and you know. Did you
I
see
think-
the thing in the Variety interview with the director Aaron Horvath? And they were like,
no.
they came up with a whole idea for this. He said, our idea that there's a mineral that's natural to the Mushroom Kingdom, which we call flotanium, because it sounded funny to us. The toads mine
Okay.
it and transform it into these blocks and use them for
So,
construction purposes. They
real
came up
quickly.
with an idea for this, and I would
So, real
imagine that
quickly.
comes into the next movie.
No, it better not. It really better not. And here's why. Are either of you even casual Star Wars fans at all?
Somewhat, yeah.
Take that as a no.
Okay.
I've seen them. I feel like I can't
Good enough.
be a nerd in any like vertical without having a keen awareness.
You don't have to be a Star Wars fan. That's fine.
Mm.
I'm just asking because I think Star Wars is the best example of why that is never a good choice. Right? Because in the original Star Wars trilogy, right, we have the Force. And what is the explanation that's given to us for what the Force is? Okay. The Force is a mystical energy that exists from all around us, and every living being taps into it. It penetrates us. It connects us. It's this religious thing, and Jedi are able to tap into it, and that's why they have magic powers. So in that, you're like, oh, cool. So Jedis are like magic space wizards or something. And you're like, yeah, that sounds fucking cool. Okay. They're like samurais mixed with wizards. Great. And then what do we do in the prequel trilogy? We explain how that works. And it's because if you're a powerful Force user, it's because you have a extra amount of midichlorians in your blood, which, what is that? Oh, it's like blood cells or something. So you're telling me now that all the magic, cool magic wizard power, right? It's like, no. It's just, you're just born special and you have weird shit in your blood. And that's why you have powers. It's like, that's lame. That's not as exciting. And like, I think it's, you look at almost any horror movie where they take a minute to be like, let's slow down the plot and explain what's happening. That is always either the easiest way to take me out of a movie like that, or the quickest way to just add bloat to an otherwise interesting movie.
Those are my favorite sections in all the Scream movies. I love the Scream movies, and they always explain at the end, and it's the best. And then you're like, shit, It was someone I totally didn't realize.
I mean, different strokes for different folks.
I would
No, I
love to
think-
give you both a budget and a screenplay, the same screenplay, and you go make your movies, and then we see the final product.
I love it.
I
Because like
do
I'm
think-
imagining in Steve's Inception, the last scene of Inception is the thing falls over, and then it's like we cut to Steve, and he's like, "So what was happening in that last scene, right? And this is so he's in the dream, just so you know, just so you're aware.
Yeah,
This is how it worked mechanically. And this is what happened. No discussion.
I wouldn't cut Sopranos off mid-sentence either. Just carry that on. Just keep going.
You kidding me? Oh my god.
We're gonna build
I'm just messing with you.
we're gonna build a Steve plugin. It's a Chrome browser plugin, and you can activate it when you're watching Netflix in browser. And Steve will pop in and explain different plot devices. The movie stops and he comes and explains it.
It's like, so what the director was going for here, right, is they really wanted you to get a sense of dread, you know? I got that, yeah.
I do think, though, in this instance, we will see it. And I don't think it's going to be explained. I think it's going to be visual. I think we're probably going to see toads mining and turning them into fucking blocks, and then those blocks float. And I think
That's
that's
fine.
how they're going to go with it.
That's a fine way to do it, because then it's the same thing I said about an Easter egg, right? It's when you slow shit down to tell me stuff that I'm not interested. You know, it's like that. I think of A Quiet Place, right? Was that did that where it's like the opening cinematic, like before the movie actually starts, where we're still getting all the credits and everything. They're like showing you like newspaper clippings and stuff to be like, here, we're explaining how all this happened, so you don't ask that dumbass question. Okay, now let's watch the movie. Which that's
yeah,
how
and
I
then
prefer-
part
yeah.
2 of that film is awful.
Yeah, well, fair enough. One and done. One and done. You know,
Yeah,
Don't
it
see the
should
second
have
one.
been one and done.
I will say though, in the Mario Kart Rainbow Road sequence, the Kuma did not need to say blue shell before doing the blue shell.
Right?
Just
It's like,
do
oh, I got it.
it.
I'm aware. I've seen it. I've seen the thing. See, and
Yeah.
again, like that to me feels like a bad Easter egg, where it's like when Mario's like in the car and he does the drift and he speeds up. I'm like, that's a good one. It just happens, right? And
You
then
just and you
get that
see it and you're like,
and you're like, oh, cool, right, cool, like the thing, got it, great, that's fun. To me, that's
Yeah.
the way I want shit like that to play out, right?
Mhm.
yeah.
Okay, so any closing thoughts on the movie itself? Let's everybody get their final word in, and then we'll talk about the future of not just the Mario movies, but I think like the Nintendo films brand, I guess, in general.
Okay. Quickly, I just wanted to say also Nihilist Luma was really good.
Oh, that was definitely a great one. Oh, you know
Yeah.
what I found out? Apparently, I think that's one of the writers' kids. So they had like a little kid.
Oh.
That's so cool.
Do all this-
They crushed it.
It was so
That
funny.
was so funny.
Yeah, and it's like I would have loved a little bit more of that kind of like more like this is for the adults in the audience type humor, you know, that I
Yeah.
feel like you get in a lot of the more modern animated stuff. But yeah, those were some really good like throwaways, and it was a bit they kept coming back to, and it was funny every time, which I was surprised by. I think like the second or third time we went back, I was like, am I gonna get sick of this? Like, is this gonna? And it's like, no, they found new ways to make it funny.
Yeah, they found a balance. So
The part
closing
where-
rem- what were you gonna say? The
the
part
part where they're getting lowered into the lava and then it stops and the loop is just like, like damn, like, you know, like finally I'm gonna die. It was so funny.
So good. So closing remarks on like the movie as a whole.
I mean, if there's anything else you want to bring up like that, feel free. You know, like I'm saying I'm trying to start transitioning us into the next section. So if there's anything else anybody
Yeah.
wants to bring up, now's your time.
Gotcha. Shy Guys should not talk. That was weird.
That was
Did not-
creepy.
That was
The
not.
one who
I
had
did not
like
like it.
and he had like the black mask
The
where he
gas
looked more.
mask
It was
one,
like
yeah.
yeah, and I was like, that's creepy. Don't love
Yeah,
that.
weird.
There was some
Um,
spooky visuals in like the Dark World stuff with Luigi and everything. I was
Oh,
like,
Yeah, the
all those
Luigi's
dry
Mansion
bones
reference,
chasing
yeah.
after him.
Yeah,
that was
yeah.
creepy. Like coming
It
up out
was.
of the ground like a zombie
yeah.
dry bones.
That was
And I
good.
forget, there was one of the moments like that where there was like a bunch of Shy Guy masks, like in the like it might have even been in the credits or something like that. And I just was real spooky, like imagery. And I remember when it happened, there was a little kid in the far back of my theater who was like, ah! Like just such a
Holy
genuine
shit.
scream at it. It was so funny.
Oh, kids. Um, yeah, fun movie. Please don't do Smash Brothers Cinematic Universe,
Oh, it's
though.
happening. It's
Illumination,
happening,
please do not
Sierra.
touch Metroid and Zelda, thank you.
I have my theory
But
for how it all comes together.
we'll get into that. But yeah, what's it called? Overall, like a lot of gratifying like video game references. Sequences are fun. Yeah, I honestly like if I was not a broke guy, I would take my boyfriend to see it because he didn't get to go see it. Like I go again, but
I would see it again.
yeah,
Yeah, I would agree with
I
that.
would see
I
it
think
again.
if I had someone else who wanted to go catch it, I'd be happy to sit through it again.
Yeah, but I think plot stinky or like had mass imperfections, but overall, like I was pleasantly surprised at how entertaining it was.
Yeah, I
Steve?
think I would agree with that. Go into it thinking that it's just going to be something to occupy your mind for an hour and a half, where you shovel
Yeah,
popcorn into your
Yeah.
face, and you'll have a good time with it. But you know, if you're a Nintendo fan, I think probably I would say it's what it's. It, I would add it as just like a to your watch list. If even if you don't watch it in the cinema and you wait till it comes out, just for the references alone, is well worth a watch. But you'll
Yeah.
probably have a good time anyway, just watching it and critiquing it, if even if you didn't
yeah.
like it, you know. um, I think I think I was pleasantly surprised. I think with the voice acting, especially, that was the biggest surprise for me. I thought I was going to despise Chris Pratt as Mario, and I didn't. I thought he did a pretty good job, to be honest. And
Yeah, I
I'm
thought he
looking
was
forward to the
largely
next one.
inoffensive, right? Like it was
I
Yeah.
like
completely forgot he was there.
which I think was the best case scenario because I still don't
Yeah,
think he would be my top pick, but I don't think he was bad. You know,
yeah.
it certainly wasn't something that I was like thinking about. It wasn't taking me out of it moment to moment, you know. I think the vast majority of, like we said, the vast majority of the performances were an additive thing, not a
Hmm.
detriment.
Yeah.
Yeah, I would say I'm aligned with the two of you. You know, I think it's fun. It's a fun movie. You know, it's not deep. It's definitely a popcorn flick. But if you're in the mood for that, I think you can have fun with it. I think if you're listening to this podcast, if you listen this deep into this conversation, I'm sure you're a Nintendo fan. I'm sure you're a big Mario fan. That's who this is for, right? Like I think if you're someone who is gonna get excited about the cool Easter eggs and the music cues and all that stuff. Going with an open mind, you know, go with a kid that you know, go with a friend, have some fun. It's a good, you know, it's not the summer, but it's a good summer blockbuster type, you know, popcorn flick. And definitely one that I enjoyed more than I thought I would. You know, I went in expecting to have a good time with it, and I think it was definitely not as good as it could have been, but much better than also much better than it could have been. So take that as you will.
Yeah, I'm glad it wasn't a disaster. Two disastrous Mario movies would have been horrendous.
Yeah.
They'd have never
I'll
have
tell
come
you what
back.
though, Steve. I really want to go rewatch the 93 one now. I'm like in the mood.
Ugh,
Oh, don't
no.
do it. It's so bad. I rewatched it a couple of years ago and it's really not a good film.
What do you say? I think we do a Discord watch along. I think we get the
Yeah,
three of
I'm up
us
for a
together.
Discord
Alright,
watch along,
alright.
yeah.
All right. Yeah, there we go. There
I'm
we go.
down for that.
And if you want, we can turn it into a drinking game or something, you know, like whatever we got to do to get through it. We'll figure it out.
Mhm.
So let's transition over to the future side of things because I think you know it's definitely an interesting question of like where things go from here and what exactly you know Nintendo's kind of path forward is broadly with this stuff because it is obviously pretty uncharted territory. But you know, Sierra, you shared this image. This came from Karim Cheese over on Twitter, and it's like an MCU style like mock up of like you know Nintendo revealing um a lineup of other flicks, right? And kind of like giving us an insight into what the roadmap could look like and what other IP we might see make it across the jump. And like what we already know, right, is there was a rumor that giant freaking robot had about there being a Donkey Kong movie in development. And this came out um, quite a while ago. And it was interesting because they had a thing here where they said, because looking at the actual article itself, it doesn't have a specific date. It says it was published a year ago. So I'm kind of, operating in the dark a little bit about the context of when this came out. But it says here, our source shared that the Donkey Kong solo movie is currently in development at Illumination. The company is also working on the Mario Brothers reboot, and it lists all the people off. And it's basically saying that their sources said that there's going to be a solo Donkey Kong movie that comes after the Mario movie. Seth Rogen will reprise his role, and that Fred Armisen would reprise his role as Cranky Kong as well. So,
Oh no.
Yeah, that part's a bit of a bummer.
But
But
just quickly, it was published the 1st of November 2021.
thank you.
Ah,
So, if this bit holds true, we know we're getting a Donkey Kong movie, right? Which I think far gone conclusion, right? Like that makes sense. It makes sense for them to have a Donkey Kong centered thing. They introduced very briefly, right, like Diddy Kong by name, but he was with Chunky and Trixie and some of the other Kongs from like the country games and 64 and stuff like that.
Do you know that one thing? I was so annoyed we didn't see his hat because I wanted to see if the Nintendo logo was on his hat. We never got to see it.
He had his hat on, but I couldn't. Yeah,
He
it
had
was
his hat
so
on, but you
quick.
couldn't
the
see
brand
the
was
logo.
skipped out. I think that was intentional.
Oh, it was bent up. Okay.
Yep.
Yeah.
Yeah.
That's funny. I wonder. Yeah, I wonder what they're gonna do with that. So that one makes sense to me, right? And then it's like obviously we talked about it kind of throughout the conversation here, where the post credits scene shows the Yoshi egg, right? That was kind of teased throughout the movie. It cracks. We hear the Yoshi, the classic Yoshi. I don't even know what to call, right?
Yeah.
I can't do it. The Yoshi, that's what he does. I
It's
don't
in
know.
the throat.
His little
I
Yoshi
can't
sound.
do it.
So I think, right, fair to say that the next movie is going to have a Yoshi focus. We'll probably pull from Super Mario World. We'll probably get to Dinosaur Land, right, which we saw briefly and during the montage this time around. Of course, we talked about like the Koopalings could come back. There's, a lot of stuff that I think you can mine from Super Mario World for like new, fresh content that we didn't explore in this one. I guess we'll start there before we get beyond that. How do you guys feel about those two things? Like, are you interested in the concept of like a Donkey Kong solo effort, right? That's more focused on the Kong family. And then if we are, I think it's safe to say we're going to get a Super Mario Brothers 2, right?
Yeah.
The movie's obviously been a huge success already. It's already turning a profit, and it's only been out for like 2 days. So, I think pretty safe to say we're going to get a couple of these things. Where are we going from here?
I think this makes sense, especially when you consider that Donkey Kong's the next section to come to Nintendo World, right? At Universal Studios. So
That's
I would
right.
imagine that it's probably being done in tandem with that. We have the movie, we have the new minecart.
There's also that rumor from
Nintendo Land.
years ago that Nintendo EAD is working on a new
New Donkey Kong could
third
game
person
could come up with
like
it,
64 style game.
So I think that side of it really does ring true, especially if we've got a report from Giant Freaking Robot. When it comes to the timeline, though, I don't know. I don't know if we get another Mario movie before we get that. I would imagine we probably get the Donkey Kong movie first, but I think I'm interested in it. I agree with you though, P. I think the Donkey Kong, the Cranky Kong performance was probably the worst of the movie. I would want to see where it
Recast.
goes. Yeah, I don't think you can recast at this point. I think it's
Why not?
probably
Nar.
I think they
no.
probably
Yeah, I
go
think he's
with it.
locked in. Sorry.
Yeah.
No one will remember. They replaced the whole guy from Iron Man to Iron Man 2. Nobody gave it. Yeah, whatever. Who cares? They recast the
think-
Hulk. Whatever.
Unless he gets cancelled, I think he's here to stay, unfortunately.
Fred Armisen is very uncancelable. Not saying, we're not all but
I'm sure, Sierra, you would not want to hear Seth Rogen for an entire movie doing his laugh as Donkey Kong, right?
just don't do the laugh. He was great as Donkey Kong. Just stop doing the laugh. Like, I don't know. Listen, I'm not an A-list actor. Who am I to tell him what to do? But like, don't do the fucking laugh, dude. And then I forget
That's
where
his
I
only
am, and I
laugh.
feel like
They
I'm
can't
watching
ever make
Pineapple
Donkey Kong laugh.
Express, you know? Like
I'm imagining Donkey Kong and James Franco together now.
I'm interested in a Donkey Kong movie. Then maybe like you extract the Donkey Kong characters and they get more development and we have more time with them and
Yeah.
it's an interesting story. I only want Illumination to touch the Mario characters, the
Yes.
like first party Nintendo characters. Maybe even Kirby. I want Yoshi very badly, but I forgot about the theme park expansion. So I guess it would make more sense if Donkey Kong came sooner. I wouldn't want them to rush like a Yoshi sequel, a Yoshi focus sequel.
Yeah, I guess it depends on what how development shook out, right? Because like if the Donkey Kong movie is already in development, like if it was in active development while the Mario movie was being worked on, then I'm sure it's coming next. If not, I could see us doing Mario 2 and then Donkey Kong. But it's
Right.
also like animated movies take a long time to make. So
Yes.
like
Yeah.
are they you got to imagine they already have the ball rolling on what comes next and that they were assuming that this would be a hit, you know?
Yeah.
I'm
Okay.
with you though. I'm definitely down for a Donkey Kong focused adventure. I feel like Donkey Kong as an IP has not gotten enough love over the years. You know,
Yes.
there's so
Yes.
many really great Donkey Kong games and a really deep roster of characters that are cool. And I really, like I said, I liked Seth Rogen's Donkey Kong. I liked the whole back and forth he had with Mario and everything. And I thought he felt like a good foil. And I think they did tease a little bit of character development for him, right? As like wanting to be like he makes a comment about like I'm not just a guy who throws stuff, and he like wanted to show his dad that he was a serious person, that he could save the day, all that kind of stuff. So it's like
Yeah.
I could see us continuing that narrative of like he's kind of this young upstart immature type character, and he'll maybe Cranky Kong gets sick and he needs to grow into a role as a leader, or the family gets kidnapped or whatever, right? Him and Diddy Kong got to go save them, or or like him and a couple of them, like him and Diddy and Trixie and
Yeah.
whatever.
That would be
Funky
fun.
Kong. Where's Funky Kong? He needs to come
Funky
along for the ride.
Kong.
He's gonna
Funky.
show up. We're
He
gonna get
better.
a Funky Kong appearance. It has to happen.
Mm-hmm.
Who do we
So
who does Pauly Shore is Funky Kong? Lock it in. I want to hear him go
Yeah.
body.
For sure.
I'm
It's
with you
funny.
though,
Oh no, go
Karen.
good.
I was gonna
No,
say
no, you good.
I'm with you though, Sierra. Like I don't want so this like poster that Karim put together: Zelda, Metroid, Star Fox, Kirby, Donkey Kong, and Super Smash Brothers. Mario and Donkey Kong, do what you want. I really want Zelda and Metroid to be handled by someone else.
Yeah,
My
I don't think
dream still
you'd want
is
him to be
like
in
a
a different style.
yeah, like it's got to be. They've got to be darker, more gritty. Like they've got to
Yeah.
be. It's what the games are, and I really want them to be a bit more mature than the Mario movie was in terms
Right.
of plot, in terms of
Especially
story.
Metroid. I could see a more child-friendly Zelda interpretation that is goofy and silly, because like that is like again, right, calling back to the only really previous interpretation we have of those characters, like in the 90s, that was kind of the vibe. And like Zelda is kind of silly, like there are dark Zelda games, but there's also a lot of goofy shit in Zelda games, right? Like your tingles, and like the
Mm.
getting mauled by chickens, and like there's
Yeah.
lots of silly shit. So like, do I want a darker Zelda? Yes. I don't know that it needs to be dark though, right? Like I could see a PG Zelda that still feels true to the like I don't think Wind Waker has a dark vibe, right? But it still
No.
feels like Zelda.
Yeah.
I think though, if you're doing it today, I think they would want it to be in the Breath of the Wild style and following that kind of story and that kind of feel that that game gave, just because that's what they're selling, right? They're selling Breath
Yeah.
of the Wild. They're going to be selling Tears of the Kingdom, so they're probably going to want to follow that style, I would imagine.
I hope
Um,
so. I would be happy if they treated Zelda and Metroid as like PG-13s, where they're like a
yeah.
Yeah.
little bit more dark, a little bit more serious. Because like we're not going to get something that's aimed at adults. Like that's
You
Nintendo
don't think
wants.
so? Because
No,
doesn't Metroid Dread have an is it an M rating?
it's T, I think.
Okay.
Right? We
Yeah,
gotta
you're
find out.
probably right. I think there's very few M-rated Nintendo first-party titles. I think it was like
Yeah.
2 when we looked it up before.
I
Yeah,
just think it's
yeah.
so funny that Star Fox is on this Marvel Nintendo map when Nintendo does not give a fuck about Star Fox.
It is one of the ones though that you could see most easily because it's like
Yeah,
Metroid Dread is a T
yeah.
game, by the way. Because Star Fox has characters that have voices
Oh,
and
yeah.
background, like there's like deep lore to Star Fox when you get
I
into
would
it,
love to see it. I would love to see another Star Fox game. I would love to see the IP have a
Yeah.
renaissance, but
I think they can use these movies to drum up interest in those IP again, you know,
yeah,
for some of the like less,
it'd be great.
it's like you said, right? You walked out of this being like, damn, I could really go to play for playing a Mario game right now. I could see them
Exactly,
timing a Star Fox in that way where you're like, yeah, no, I could go for a Star Fox game. And then you're like, cool, guess what? Here's one. Get back into it.
for sure. I'm just not so sure that we need movies or, like, CGI treatment for Zelda and Smash. I am also not a huge lifelong Zelda fan, so I guess defer to lifelong fans there. But for me personally, I can't imagine what the fuck a live action, like, Zelda would look like. I can't imagine, like, pairing, like, a big actor to, like, that face. It's like if you tried to catch Ash Ketchum.
There was a rumor, right, that it was gonna be a live action over at Netflix for a while for
Yeah,
Zelda.
and that fell through. There was a Star Fox thing in development over there as well, and they
Yeah.
like somebody at Netflix leaked it, and Nintendo backed out.
Oh,
Is the
Jesus
story
Christ. Of
that
course.
I've
That's how we
seen?
ended up with
Yeah,
Illumination.
I don't know because it's like I don't know that I want a live action anything from Nintendo. I think the idea of a live action Zelda is a lot more appealing than what I think the reality of that looks like. Because I agree with you, Sierra. I don't know how you pick an actor to play that character unless you pick someone who's an unknown, and then it's like, does Link have a voice? Does Link talk? And it's like
That's the other thing.
I
Yeah.
don't know. Like that feels weird, and it's also like I don't know though, right? Because like how much do these characters talk? It's like Mario has a voice, sure, but like this is a different voice and we got used to it. I think it literally could work. It could make sense. I think if you're asking me which I'd prefer, I'd probably take animated of everything from Nintendo over live action because I think the reality of them doing something live action that is as cool as we want it to be is pretty slim. Because like
Yeah.
I've said this before, right? If I had like an unlimited budget to make any video game movie, I would make a R-rated Metroid movie that had no dialogue.
Yeah.
And I would
Oh, yeah,
have
that'd be
I want
hard
it
as
I'd
like
have
hell.
Gravity with Sandra Bullock just,
yeah,
like, floating in space, but, she's just in real jeopardy with all of these, like, X around and Metroids and
That
stuff.
would be
mhm.
sick.
Like I'd get you get like a get a bona fide movie star, like get like a like a Brie Larson or somebody like that, and do the Mandalorian thing, right? Where it's like you barely see her face, right? Like it's like you get maybe 2, 3 shots in the whole movie where it's real close on the visor and you can see the eyes. Maybe she takes it off at the end, that kind of thing. But I'm saying 90% of this movie, you're in the suit and it's no dialogue unless it's like she's at a computer and the computer's talking,
It's gotta be
and like
because, like, the game was so inspired by Alien, and that's the vibe that Alien gives off. If you're gonna make a
atmospheric,
movie,
spooky, lonely,
yeah,
like
you
that's
gotta
what
go
it's got
back
to be.
to it. Mhm.
And I think if
Yeah,
you're
I
not going to
agree.
do those things, then, don't do it. But it's
I
like, I
think
don't know that I see Nintendo making those kinds of movies because, like, I think they want to make stuff that's all ages, and I
yeah,
think
I think so. But you
some
also kind
franchises
of
don't
don't
lend
need
themselves to that as much.
I don't think we need it really. I would love to see like an anime Zelda, like something like
That's how I
Arcane over
feel.
at Netflix. I feel like
Yeah.
that would be a better style rather than the Illumination style
You know what?
animation.
My go-to for that would be and this isn't an original idea I heard Barrett on one of the Kind of Funny podcasts say this, but ever since I heard him say it, I can't get it out of my head. Is Jendi Tartakovsky, who is the anime. There you go. That's the reaction I was looking for. To contextualize him for you, Steve, he is the animator who his credits include Dexter's Lab, Samurai Jack, and then Primal.
Okay.
And the
So
Powerpuff Girls.
that's true. That's true. Yeah, he was one of
Yeah.
the not co-creators, but he was like one of the storyboard. Like he worked on the whole like first 2 seasons, I think, or whatever.
Yeah.
With what's his name, McCracken.
Ray McCracken.
Yeah, there we go. So I mean, first of all, I love Jendy's work. I think he's a brilliant animator. I think the reason I would pick him to do, and I think this goes for either Zelda or Metroid, right? For like an anime, or not even an anime, like a serial, right? A serialized, like, animated story, is because, again, of how good he is at making animation that has no dialogue, right?
Mhm.
Like in the last season of Samurai Jack, there's that one episode that's like all black and white, and it's like it's in the snow, and then it's like in these shadows, and there's literally, I think, no dialogue in the whole episode. It's all just atmospheric sound and like swords clashing, and the whoosh of someone jumping, and like all that kind of stuff. Like really just focused on the animation, on the action, on the character beats. That would be awesome. That would be really cool to have a silent protagonist type series about either of those characters just like going on adventures.
Mhm. Yeah.
But yeah, I'm with you where, like, I think when it comes to Illumination, like Kirby, I could see, I guess, them doing, I think the cartoonier stuff, the cutesier stuff in this style,
Kirby, I
I could
kind of
see.
want a different style. Like I want like claymation Kirby. I think would always be. I've always had like
I'd
in
be
my
open to
mind would be
that,
really
yeah.
Yeah.
cool. I'd just love to see that.
I'll
Um,
tell you what though, I'm worried that Illumination's going to do all of these, because I do think that I think there's a pretty decent chance that they're going to try to build to like a Smash Brothers universe event type thing. Because again, and I'll tell you why I think that
No.
is in the scene where Mario and Peach are talking about her backstory. And she's like, oh, like I came through the pipe and I don't know where I'm from. And he's like, maybe you're from my universe. And like, she very like awkwardly kind of is like, well, there's sure a lot of universes out there, and like looks off to a lot of galaxies is what she said. Right. And I think it's easy to be like, okay, maybe that's just, we're like nodding at Mario Galaxy and we get Rosalina eventually. We do whatever.
Yeah.
I think that could easily be how you connect everybody through Smash, is like, oh, you go through the warp pipe, you end up in Hyrule, or you end up here, you end up there. And
Yeah.
I think that's what's going to happen long term. But I do think it's funny, Steve, you said something earlier where you're like, oh, I don't know like where they go from here because of how many cards they played in this movie. I feel like we got so many left. Like, obviously, we
yeah,
talked
you're
about the
right.
Super Mario
Haven't
World stuff, but
spoken
like
about it. Yeah.
Wario, Waluigi, like that's a whole movie, right? We get into Wario Land, do some of that stuff. Like that's an
Please.
easy
Waluigi's
one.
not getting his own movie. He doesn't even get his own game. There's no way
No, I mean,
He
Waluigi's.
doesn't even get into Smash.
I'm talking in Mario 3, right? Or beyond Mario 2, we introduce those two goons, and maybe we
Yeah.
do. I think you could do a whole Mario Kart movie, right? Just like about like a
I
big.
feel like we got enough of that. It was like it felt like I was watching Mad Max for a moment. It was like
We
Mad Max
definitely
Fury
did.
Road.
I did like that though. I'm like,
It was pretty cool, yeah.
I could do more of that. So I feel like there's a lot of cards left to play. As far as the Mario stuff goes, like I'm certainly interested in seeing more, especially now that they have their feet wet. Is like, where do we go from here? But I don't know. Yeah, as much as I think if they want to build towards a Smash thing, I'm cautiously interested, I guess, but I would like to see them bring in other talent, and I just don't think that happens in a movie space. I don't see how you do that and then you bring it all together and have it make sense and feel cohesive, but I also remember saying that before Avengers came out and being like, yeah, we'll see how that plays out. And here we are like 10 years later and they made that shit work. So we shall see. Any closing thoughts?
I was just looking at before we go. I was just looking up Nintendo Pictures, who was formerly Dynamo Pictures, and what they've worked on. They've worked on some interesting stuff. So they worked on like motion capture for Persona 5, but they also did like CG for stuff like Yuri on Ice and Final Fantasy
Mm.
15. So they've done some interesting things, and I wonder if that maybe they explore some of the talent that they've got over at Nintendo Pictures as well for maybe smaller things rather than just going for Illumination for everything. But
Yeah.
it's interesting. It's going to be interesting to see where Nintendo goes from here. But I think you're right, Pete. There's a ripe universe for them to go dipping into for movies, TV shows, whatever they want to make.
They got to be feeling really bullish after this too, right? Because obviously, like there were so many failures 30 years ago between the Mario Brothers movie and some of these other things that, like, I think they didn't feel represented the IP well, and they got really gun shy about it. And now this being a huge success that they feel happy about, that their people were involved in, that made a huge financial return and will probably continue to make a huge financial return. They got to be thinking about what comes next and, like, what are the other people they can partner with so that it's not all on Illumination to be the driving force. Because, like, there was an ad for a new movie they have coming out that's not a Nintendo thing, so, like, they can only make so much too, right? So maybe that's one thing that is in our favor for wanting to see other people get to play with these pieces. Is, they have a finite amount of resources too, right? But yeah, I gotta say, pleasantly surprised, excited for the future. It feels like maybe video game movies are going to be the next big wave if we keep getting hits like this. We'll see what happens. So, thank you guys for joining us here on another episode of Nintendo Noise. Remember, if you want to write in and share your thoughts on the Super Mario Brothers movie or any of the other stuff that we talked about on this or any episode of Nintendo Noise, there's a bunch of ways you can get in touch, get involved, and join the community. Head over to flipscreen.games. That's our website where you will find links to all the places we are all over the web. You can join our Discord. You can write into the show at questions@flipscreen.games. You can go become a Patreon supporter and get the show early. However you choose to get involved and show your support, we greatly appreciate you and hope that you enjoyed this episode of the show. For the crew, I've been Pete. He's been Steve. She's been Sierra. Let's-a go. Until next week. Goodbye.